Hi, spoilers ahead. Storytelling in video games have evolved from the standard Disney style saving a princess to something bigger. There's always that one or two games that stand out as being so good that they just outclasses everything else. God of War, released in 2018, was just that. It had an emotional and touching story that is carried by amazing voice acting performances, a rich world filled with lore, and a strong direction that rivals other masterpieces like Last of Us Part 1 and Red Dead Redemption. It is without a doubt one of the greatest stories in video games. However, the irony is that making such an amazing product causes impossibly high expectations on the sequel, and thankfully, somehow through some miracle, God of War Ragnarok exceeds every single one of my expectations. And let me just emphasize that is extremely difficult to do, so kudos to Santa Monica. So how do you make a game better than a predecessor that is known to be the next big step in the gaming industry? Some players have this impression considering the grand scale of Ragnarok. Involving so many characters and armies would automatically make God of War Ragnarok a better game, as the 2018 one just did not have that kind of skill. However, bigger isn't always better. Plenty of movies have tried this, and some of the results is a convoluted and confused mess without substance, meaning and emotion. Games have the benefit of spreading their material over 20 hours long, but even then there are plenty of examples of games that fail to recapture the same level of story in their predecessor. However, to me, the heart of God of War Ragnarok isn't Ragnarok itself. While yes, it is extremely important and a major plot point and just an overall insane premise, what makes this a masterpiece is the incredible love to detail on the writing for the characters. Their conflicts, their development, their emotion, and their complexity as individuals make this story more than just a bunch of one-dimensional characters going on a journey, and this gave me a connection to characters I've never felt before in any other video game. Depth in a story is something often skimmed past. The main plot in this game is to avert a prophecy, more specifically Loki's prophecy, where he will end up side by side with Odin, while his dad will be killed by Thor. Despite Odin and Thor being the main villains, the main conflicts actually occur between ourselves. The conflict on trust takes center stage, and it is presented beautifully. Atreus, after finding out that his identity extends more than just being Atreus, he is eager to search for the answers that can help him understand his supposed true identity. His growth in age also made him braver and confident, but also impulsive and emotional. But the search for answers is an arduous one that may incite war with Asgard. Kratos is against that, not because he can't fight them or anything, but he seeks to be better. Kratos knows his fate. He will die in the arms of Atreus, and is doing everything he can to keep Atreus safe and to train him to be ready when fate takes Kratos away. However, he is unable to share his fate as he knows Atreus will react adversely and be rash in his decision to counter. And trust is not the only conflict these two face. Vengeance is also a conflict. Atreus is willing to go to any lengths to get his answers, even if it means war, and Kratos says no as he knows the immense consequence of war and the possibility that Kratos will turn into his old self, which is something he does not want Atreus to see and possibly learn from. As they visit the war-torn land of Elfheim, Atreus learns from both Kratos and Tyr that there is no right or wrong in war, and that war is an event, whether victorious or lost, is one where many innocent people will die. This actually subtly changes Atreus' mind on war, but also realizes that if war is needed to protect Kratos from dying, Atreus will go to war, which is the one thing that is common between both Kratos and Atreus. They will go to undeniable lengths to protect each other from death. But this causes a ripple of conflicting thoughts. Are they willing to bear the consequences of war and vengeance from their desire to protect one another? We see the consequences of this through Freya, from the loss of Baldur, and Sindri through the loss of Brock, his revival, and his eventual death. This makes the game extremely thought-provoking. It is not as simple as, oh, vengeance is bad because people get killed and killing is bad. All of these conflicting thoughts that layer on top of one another makes every dialogue, every action, every decision significant and meaningful. It makes characters feel like real people, because just like real life, it's always complicated. One of the most surprising character arcs is Sindri, which is one that to me has been the most impactful in the game, but also has the least screen time. We all know Sindri as an ingenious dwarf and blacksmith with an obsession with cleanliness, alongside with Brock that is just as ingenious but much more foul-mouthed and blunt in his words. The revelation that Brock actually died wasn't even like a main point in the game. We discover this through traveling dialogue with Atreus. And the next scene that engages back on this topic is much later in the game, whereby Sindri tries to convince Kratos to not bring Brock to see the lady, which ultimately fails. And right after we see Brock realizing his reality, which is the lady's lack of attention to Brock wasn't intentional but instead natural, as the mermaids speak directly to their souls, something Brock doesn't have fully. This then brought upon one of the most emotional scenes for me personally. There was no crying from any of the characters or any insane outbursts, but a mildly frustrated Brock. It is clear that he is upset with Sindri keeping the truth away from him, but yet he understands his intentions, thus his lack of rage. It is that feeling of depression, to find out that his desire to meet the lady will never come into fruition, as the lady will never be able to sense and speak to Brock. It almost seems like Brock is seeking validation from the lady. It is that loss of meaning and possibly purpose that strikes me directly in the heart. And the part where I teared up was when Kratos goes Father of the Year and asks Brock for his blessing on his newly acquired spear, reminding Brock that it does not matter on whether he fully has his soul or not, but the fact that he is still the legendary blacksmith that created Mjolnir and the Leviathan axe. His true nature of one that is caring and lovable despite his foul-mouthed demeanor, one worthy of blessing a legendary weapon. Maybe it is the lack of focus given to Brock and Sindri in the first game, since they have and always have been presented as positive and trouble-free blacksmiths, so such an event feels really stark and contrasting to what we are used to. And when Brock gets killed by Odin, we see why it is one of the craziest character developments to me. Sindri going ultra nightmare mode. From someone who was always positive and only had to worry about cleanliness, we see a lovable character hit rock bottom. Nothing phases him anymore. He no longer has tolerance for others and has only one goal, which is to kill Odin. Even at the very end at Brock's funeral, we can still see Brock's blood on Sindri's armor. We see a broken and grief-stricken Sindri. As he disappears instantly, his arc concludes. A very sad ending for Sindri. But let's lighten things up. One thing that also surprised me was how they were able to weave in humor and a light-hearted vibe within such a depressing and tragic atmosphere. Atreus' friendly banter as he fights alongside Sindri.
Thanks for sacrificing so many objects from your bag of tricks.
Well, I clearly need the help.
Oh, whatever.
Mimir and Freya joking and poking fun at Kratos' seriousness.
Good thing you were so cautious, brother.
Quiet.
He's right, Mimir. Show respect. The squeaky toy could have been the death of us all.
And it nearly was.
Do not laugh.
It's hard not to, brother.
Try.
Okay.
The almost Disney-like storytelling in Ironwood, Angerboda almost being portrayed as princess-like with no qualms, and we see her struggles with her faith on prophecies and how she is able to look past the prophecies and craft her own story. Ratatoskr, which is brilliantly voice acted, has this undeniable charm that just has so much personality within it. But strangely enough, the funniest parts came from Atreus and Thor going out in adventures, and surprisingly, they both radiate qualities that they personally seek. Atreus seeks trust from Kratos, which Thor indirectly gives by allowing Atreus to take care of himself during battle, allowing him to feel strong and not overly reliant on outside help. Similarly, deep down, Thor seeks to be a role model and honestly some respect by those close to him as he constantly faces disrespect from Odin and is plagued by a troubling relationship with Thrud. Atreus saying that he learned something from Thor, whether deceptive or not, was actually quite heartening to see someone validating Thor, and I would say that deep down inside, Thor accepts it. And personally, my favorite mission of the entire game was Atreus, Thrud and Thor going absolutely ham in the bar. All three of them fighting seemingly for the thrill while simultaneously trying to get Thor off his ass to go on a mission was just way more wholesome than it had to be. We also see the vulnerable side of Thor through the difficult relationship with Thrud. From here, it suddenly becomes apparent that Thor is very similar to Kratos, both controlled by higher powers and being used as a weapon growing up, both facing difficulty in communicating with their loved ones, and they are both regretful, filled with guilt from their past actions, which ultimately makes the end fight between Kratos and Thor way more satisfying. While a fight to the death is what we all wanted initially, Kratos successfully convincing Thor on being better for the sake of their children feels like a bigger win, one that feels earned and appropriate and not rushed or last minute. It feels good because these ideas are developed. We see the internal conflicts through different lenses, offering us different perspectives and opinions over a period of time. It allows the players to think and understand characters' decisions and actions. Kratos not wanting to kill Thor, or even Atreus not wanting to kill Odin, This does not happen out of nowhere at the very end. It has been a recurring question that is smartly written through the conflicts that the characters go on whether vengeance really is the right thing to do. And while Kratos and Atreus chose mercy, Sindri just does not give two craps and slammed Odin out of existence. A very satisfying conclusion to Odin's tyranny. But there is one last scene that ties everything together. The scene that makes this my favorite game of all time. Kratos opens up a shrine that shows his future, and it showed Kratos standing tall and shining in gold as he is surrounded by people in admiration, respect and praise. It showed that everything Kratos had tried to do, getting rid of the monster that is the god of war, going through the trials and tribulations, the thick and the thin, to reach a point where he is no longer looked at in fear or horror, but as a symbol of strength and hope. For someone that literally went through hell and back, seeing Kratos have an ending that is hopeful makes this journey absolutely worth it. Since the 2018 God of War, we always see Kratos wanting to move away from the violent and murderous nature that he used to be. So many of his major decisions was to contribute to this, and to see him being validated of his efforts through his own prophecy. Now that is character development that rivaled the likes of Walter White. And yeah, I wish I could talk about everything about this game, but to me, these are the things that make this game a storytelling masterpiece. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do like and subscribe if you would like to see more, and I'll see you guys next time.